Hi everyone, and welcome to our third webinar of 2014. My name is Katrina Anderson and I work alongside Robin Kelso in P&C Services. Before we start, we would like to acknowledge our annual partners, CareMonkey, who provide support to our state schools. If you would like to ask a question during the webinar, type it into the messages box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We will try to answer as many questions as possible throughout the webinar. We will provide responses to all questions asked via email to you and hope to do this within the next week. If there are any urgent questions, please call us or email us. At the end of the webinar, you will be asked to conduct a short survey to provide us with some feedback. I will now hand over to Robin to start the webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all comfortable and ready for our webinar. These webinars are all recorded, so after we've finished this one you can go back into our members area and watch it, or if someone has missed it they can do that too. So let's get started. Sorry, we're having a little bit of a difficulty. Thank you. All right. As you can see, the P&C, the objective of the P&C is mainly about looking for the improvement of the school, and by promoting that parent participation and getting a cooperation between staff, and we try to get that very positive community spirit within the schools. So what is a P&C? P&C is usually a group of people that get together, they're like-minded, and the whole aim of the association is to support the school. So it's a more formal body. Some of you will have school councils that is a step up as being a more formal, more strategic body. The P&C is the main body of the school community, and that's where you can give feedback on policies and activities. You're there to help out and provide enhanced learning opportunities for the students by providing additional resources and opportunities for the children. And research has shown that where parents are involved, the children's success at school is much higher. So on our executive committee, there are the 4 positions. You'll note that there are only those 4. And we can have others as appointed, but under your constitution, the president, the vice president, the secretary and the treasurer are those people that form the P&C executive committee. So if you are having a meeting of the executive, it is those people, and you can invite others on, such as if you have a publicist officer or something like that, you can add them in, but in the true sense of the definition in your constitution, it is only those 4 positions. So just be aware of that as you're going through. So all positions are honorary. You must ensure that that happens. You can't be paid an honorarium, and employees can't serve office as an officer of the association. So the P&C have a number of responsibilities, but quite often we separate them out. But the reality is that all of the P&C executives are responsible for the accountability of the association, and they're all responsible for the finances. It's not just the treasurer. All P&C executives have to be able to understand the reports and interpret them and ensure that all accountability practices have been followed. Where your P&C has an outside hours school care program, the executive is responsible for that. You might have a subcommittee of your OSH care program, but the responsibility will lie with the P&C executive as the approved providers for that service. So that's something to make sure that you keep in mind, is that the buck stops with the executive of the P&C. So very important to realise. Now, finding help. The P&C Queensland website is a really good place to start for any executive. We have a number of resources there. The quick guide, which you can see the cover for, on there has just recently been being updated, so it will be available again for you soon. The support guide for P&Cs is more of an extended version of that, and it's now up on the website and available for use by the P&C. The department, which is the Department of Education, Training and Employment, governs P&Cs. And if you're doing a search on their website, if you type in the full words parents and citizens, you'll come to that page. The page there will give you all of the relevant information that you need and give you links to other documents that you need. So that's an important page. You will see there that you've got your model constitution, your accounting manual, and you'll have the support guide in there on the department's website. So it's always important to be familiar with that. So the accounting manual is the basis of all your treasurer's work. So the department provides you with an accounting manual that will give you guidelines, templates and examples of all the sorts of things that as a P&C you need to know. The P&C isn't an association in its own right. It is a statutory body and it's governed by the Education General Provisions Act of 2006. So in doing that you have a responsibility to the department, and they have a responsibility to P&Cs, and they provide you with a manual that is compulsory or mandatory for you to use, and they also provide the P&C Constitution, which again is a mandatory document. They're your two main documents. There are others that you will find across the way, but they're the ones that are mandatory. You'll also see on this site that there are cash books. They're Excel spreadsheet cash books, and they're designed to do up all the reports that you will need as a treasurer. The one thing they won't do, but is wages. So if you're paying wages, it might be best to look at a commercial package rather than these. If you're a small school and you don't have employees, these spreadsheets are ideal, and they will provide you with the end of month and end of year reporting. And the last link on that page is the accountability transmission documents, and they're what have to go on the front of your audited statements at the end of a year before they go to the audit. So that's where you will find those things, on the department's website. Now accounting, your cash book, it should be electronic. Even if it is just a spreadsheet, it's much easier these days to do that. It can be that free spreadsheet that we have, or a commercial package. And the P&C can decide which package they wish to use and which is going to best meet their needs. But in making that, there's some things that you need to consider. So if you have a very complex situation, you're going to need an accounting software that's going to do a bit more. But very few of our P&Cs use all of the complexities of a package like MyOb or QuickBooks. You can adjust them to meet your needs, so your accountant or your auditor can help you with doing that. So just keep in mind they're the sorts of things you need to look for, and when you're deciding around your books. This is an example of the 20-column cash book, and you'll see there's a little man on the left-hand side, and when you click on him he takes you through to different pages and menus. So it's very easy to set up, and you'll find that on the department's site, and again if you're a small school it's ideal. So now the accounting manual for P&Cs has been approved by the Minister for Education, Training and Employment, and it's double badged by both the department and P&Cs Queensland, and P&Cs must comply with this manual. And if you do, then you're going to be protected in the way you keep your financial documents, and you will know that what you're doing is in accordance with all the financial legislation and requirements that are required of a P&C. I'm just going to briefly stop and ask Katrina if there's any questions at this point.
No, we don't have any questions at the moment, Robin, but if anyone wants to ask a question, just on the right-hand side there is the questions window pane, and just type your questions in there, pardon me, and we will endeavour to answer them.
Okay, we'll continue on then. So P&C associations have a financial year of January 1 to the 31st of December every year. They don't do the regular financial year. So in some instances there are people that you have to notify of this, and one of those is the ACNC, which is the Australians Commission of Not-for-Profits, and they register P&Cs as a not-for-profit, and they will ask you for a report, and it's done on your financial year, but you will need to advise them that you have a financial year that is January 1 to December 31. Some of you may already have had contact from ACNC at this point in time. So your financial year is actually legislated under the Education General Provisions Act. So we're just going to move more to the Treasurer's actual role now. So the Treasurer has the overall responsibility for all P&C accounts, and that does include their subcommittee accounts. The Treasurer has to be across all of those and give us a comprehensive view of the financial situation of the P&C at each meeting. So they must comply with the accounting manual, and they must comply with the purchasing policy. Purchasing policy has just been released and updated this year, and so it would be well worth a look on the department's website or on our website to ensure that your P&C is able to follow purchasing policy there. So, and the financial statements and reports must be at each meeting. You must keep those reports accurate and include your expenditure and your receipts in there. And you should be involved in the school budget, but you will need to be asked into that by your principal. So please talk with your principal about that. It's up to them if they have a P&C representative on that group. You provide advice to the members of the association around the finances. So we then also have to ensure that everything at the end of the year is made ready for the auditor. So anything that you're using on a daily basis would go to the auditor. So that includes the checkbooks, deposit books, any receipts, all of those things. You should prepare an annual budget around October. The school will be doing the same. And so you should do that in consultation with the executive committee, the rest of the members and the school, and look at what the school's wish list is for the coming year. The annual statements for the association should be made available to the auditor by the end of December. The thing to remember there is that the school is usually closed for the Christmas holidays, and so you will have to arrange for that final bank statement to be delivered to your home address, so that you do get it and can prepare the final end-of-year statements. It's important that you do that, otherwise you're waiting until school reopens to actually get that done. So you should be banking all monies as soon as you can. It's not ideal to leave money hanging around, and pay all accounts as soon as they've been authorised. All your payments should be authorised at a P&C meeting, so you should have a schedule of payments that are put in at each meeting. Should issue receipts for any money that you have received. And it's important to have a paper trail and a process. If you have a process and a paper trail, it will save you at times when things go a little bit pear-shaped. You'll be able to go back to that process and it will provide you with the information that you need. P&Cs can make payments by cheques or electronic transfer, funds transfer, but do make sure that they are correctly filled out and signed by the appropriate people. All cheque accounts have to be crossed as not negotiable. So if you're using a checkbook, your bank should do that. They should come to you that way. And make sure that all statements are prepared for your meetings and that your bank statement is cited by either the secretary or another executive and countersigned by them. So an accountable forms register is a register of your deposit books and your purchase orders, your checkbooks, and you keep a number and you sign them out to various people and sign them back in so that you're always aware of who has the important documents for the P&C. Where there is a subcommittee account, you should have some sort of guidelines in place with the subcommittee, and any funds that are in excess of their operating capital. For instance, if they need $4,000 in their bank account to pay all the expenses that they've incurred and whatever is sitting there as an outstanding account, then anything over that would be transferred back to the P&C general account. It can be earmarked for use by the subcommittee. If not, it can be used by the P&C itself. Ensure that all your accounting is open and transparent. It really is good to protect yourselves, and make sure that you're monitoring wages, that you're paying superannuation, PAYG, and that you've got work cover for your employees and files for them on site. It is important to have those files on your school site for any of your employees. So ensure that all reports are countersigned and original bank statements are cited. So your treasurer, you should be able to show that at the meeting, and then they will be able to be filed after that. And ensure that all the accounts are current and have been reconciled. If they're not reconciled, you need to be asking why and trying to correct that as soon as possible. So what the treasurer cannot do. The treasurer can't be the president or the secretary. The treasurer is a standalone position. The treasurer of the main P&C can be the treasurer of a subcommittee. So all the funds can go through the one main account of the P&C. They don't necessarily have to have a separate account. If your P&C is setting up a subcommittee and they want to have a chairperson, secretary and a treasurer in that subcommittee, that's fine, but that treasurer will report back to the main P&C Treasurer, and the main P&C Treasurer is the one that is responsible. You cannot operate on a credit card or a debit card, and this is because we need 2 signatures to sign anything that you do. So on a credit card or a debit card, that's not able to be done. So if you're wanting to purchase items regularly from a shop, then it would be best to open up an account there, and those items would then be reconciled with the monthly account. So again, I'm just going to see if there are any questions from Katrina, and then we'll move forward.
Thanks, Robin. We do have a couple of questions, and I'll answer them if you like to give your voice a bit of a break. I have a question about the accounting manual. Where can they find the accounting manual? It's on our website under P&C Resources and Essential Documents. All 3 essential documents are there, which is the Constitution. The accounting manual is a link to the Education Queensland website, and then the support guide, which Robin was talking about before. So that's on our website. Another question about if you have electronic funds transfer, how does that work when 2 people must sign on the account? Just an example, the Commonwealth Bank have ComBiz, which is their online banking. They give you a toggle, and they have it set up in the system that 2 people must authorise payments when they are made. So that is how that would work. If you do ComBiz or other banks would have the similar arrangements. And another question just about the banking, can they have separate like bank accounts for the tuck shop? Yes, you can have that if you want to, you don't have to. It can all be through the same P&C's main bank account, but you can set up a separate bank account for subcommittees, for example, Touch Shop, if you need to. Information about that is in the accounting manual under subcommittees. So that's all the questions at the moment. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, all these questions that have been asked and answered, we will within the next week email everyone who has registered for the webinar the questions that were asked and the answers. So back to you, Robin.
Okay, just a question, just a little bit of a bit more information on the bank accounts. You do need to keep in mind that if you have more than one bank account, you're going to have a larger audit fee from your auditor, because the more accounts you've got, the more complex it is. If you're running an outside hours school care, it's recommended that you have a separate bank account. Otherwise, it is possible to run all of your accounts through one of the accounting packages, and that will reduce your bank fees and your auditing fees. So it's important to consider that when you're making those decisions. In some cases it is easier, but remember, just keep those in mind when you're making those decisions. So at a general meeting, you need to have a bank reconciliation performed before each meeting and checked by another officer, and the original bank statement cited and signed. The financial reports should be presented at the monthly meeting for each of your accounts that you have. So if you have subcommittees with a bank account, you will expect to have a financial report for them. So again, they all should be certified by the Treasurer and countersigned by another executive officer. And the whole idea here is that you're working as a team and you're all backing each other up, and the best way to do that is so that everybody knows what's going on. If you don't have a report for 2 consecutive meetings or more than that, you should really investigate, because there's usually something happening. It may be quite legitimate and you will get your reports at the following meeting, but please don't sit on it for a long period of time, because that's when our P&Cs get into trouble and they haven't got their reports, and then the department starts to ask for them, and we find out that there's a bit of a mess there. If you are having trouble, please come and ask. The senior finance officers at the regional offices can assist. Your principal and your business service manager, or whoever does the accounts at your school, can also assist, and both Katrina and I can assist in a smaller way, but it is better to do it locally at your school. Stock takes should be done monthly, but with the accounting manual it says that they must be done at least at the end of each term. So you need to make sure you are conducting stock takes, because they actually provide you with a realistic overview of your financial position, because sometimes you can have quite a lot of stock, particularly around uniform time. So documents that you would include in your reports are the cash books, the statement of receipts and payments, so people know what you're paying out and what's coming back in, trading statements, if they're there, should be presented, and stock inventory for any subcommittee or the main P&C at least once a term. Wastage levels in the tuck shop should be monitored and costed. So for instance, if you're providing lunch for volunteers, that lunch should be recorded in the wastage book, because it is actually a loss to the P&C, and you can review that at a later time. If at the end of a day you have stock that is not saleable, then that should also be recorded in there. The receipts and payments should be monitored against your budget estimates. So your monthly responsibilities, need to ensure that subcommittees present that financial report at the monthly meetings, and I suppose I pushed on this point a little bit, and that's because most often that's where the P&Cs get into trouble, is where their subcommittees aren't presenting their reports. And if they have a separate account, you need to see their bank statements and check that their reconciliation is correct. against their checkbook. So monitor their payments and receipts. They should also have a budget, and then you can file all the information. It is best to file your information on school site, so you can ask your principal for a secure place to store your P&C documents, and if you're using them, you're using the cash books or whatever you're using, as soon as that monthly meeting is finished and they can be filed on site, that's what should happen. You can also use our members area as a place to store your documents. It's password protected and secure, so you can actually put things like your constitution, the accounting manual, anything that would be needed for a handover to your new P&C at the end of the year can be on there, and that saves people a lot of trouble. So always make sure that you give a copy of any reports to the secretary to be filed as part of the minutes. So we have more P&Cs that are moving towards electronic payments now, but those who are using checks should make sure that they are marked as not negotiable, account payee only. All checks are to be signed by 2 approved signatures who are officers of the association. So you have to, the people who are signing those checks have to be officers of the association. You have to ensure that they're made out to a person or a business and not to cash. If, for instance, you want to cash a petty cash check, you would write that out to the name of the person who is going to the bank with it, and at the top across the check you would write "Please pay cash," and the 2 people who had signed it down the bottom would sign it at the top, and that would open the account, open the check for the bank to cash. But it's still made out to a particular person. You never have a check that's made out to cash, and you never sign a blank check. We have a number of P&Cs that get themselves into trouble because they trust whoever's in the position and they sign blank checks because that's easier. It's the easiest way to get yourselves all into trouble, because remember, you are all responsible for the finances of the P&C. So the other thing is to ensure that checks aren't signed by an employee or the principal. They need to be signed by, not signed by an employee, the principal, or 2 members of the same family. So the principal firstly can't be a signatory on the P&C account. An employee is not able to be a signatory on the account, and you will find that in the Constitution. And it's best practice where you have 2 members from the same family to only have one of them with signature rights, so that there is no question that their integrity can be called into question over that. So it's about protecting them as much as it is about protecting you. So if we look at payments, again, all payments should be made by electronic transfer or check, or if you've got petty cash. Now, petty cash should not be a huge amount of money. It shouldn't be much more than $100, and you should only be buying those small things that are required. Everything else should be able to be delivered to the school or paid for by check or electronic transfer or on account. So make sure that everything is supported with original invoices and receipts. Your auditor will need those, and if they're not there, it calls into question the practices of the P&C. So everything is about protecting yourselves and making sure that you're running an open and transparent process. So when your convener, your tuck shop convener, for instance, receives goods, they should be stamped with the date and signed to say that they have been received, and once they're paid, they can be marked that they've been paid and filed for the auditor. You can take advantage of any discounts offered by suppliers, but under our purchasing policy, you're not able to haggle with suppliers around price. So we do have to follow purchasing policies, so just make sure of that. So operate a petty cash on an impress system, so that if somebody is authorised to purchase something, the money will come out of that petty cash once the receipt's there, and it will be reimbursed up to the total that you allow for your petty cash. In your Constitution, there is a section that asks you to list the amount of petty cash you have, That is the petty cash for the whole association. So if, for instance, you have $50 petty cash for the secretary and $50 for the tuck shop convener and $50 for the OSHCARE coordinator, that would mean you put $150 in that spot on your constitution. So just make sure you are aware of that. Okay, so at all times, ensure that the businesses are using all the information that they have and all the processes that you've put in place. So make sure they are using purchase books, order books for purchases. That can be as simple as an exercise book that's numbered, or you can buy a book from the newsagent that's numbered, but it gives you some idea of what's being ordered. The other advantage of that is that if, for instance, your tuck shop convener was off, you would be able to look back on the previous orders and find out what needed to be ordered for the following day. So it is important to do. Okay. Oops. Okay. You need to keep official receipt books for when you're collecting money. So you might have more than one, but you still need to give receipts for people who are collecting money. In your tuck shops and uniform shops, you should really have a cash register that will issue a receipt directly to the parents. Checkbooks, all the payments again must be made that way. And your accountable forms must exist. You must have somewhere where you're recording those accountable forms and know who's got them. They've been signed out. Make sure that all your accounts are up to date, balanced, and check your purchases against orders. The other thing is to ensure that individuals aren't purchasing through the tuck shop, because quite often on an account that you will get, the GST is at the bottom of the account, and when you ask people to pay for maybe a bag of chicken nuggets or something like that, then they don't necessarily get the bill for the whole amount, and you can actually quite easily be selling at a loss. The other thing is that it inflates your sales figures, so it's not proper to do it that way. If individuals want to make an arrangement with a supplier, they're welcome to do that, but it shouldn't come through the P&C accounts. So receipting and banking. All your receipts should be in sequential order and for the total of the funds that were there. There always needs to be two people collecting funds and counting money. If your tuck shop convener, for instance, is in a tuck shop and there's no one else around, they should call to the office and get someone else to come down. It'll only take a few minutes for someone to come down and count the funds with them and sign that they've counted them. It's a way to protect the person who is counting the funds as well, and a counterbalance. Always issue those receipts for any money that comes in. Check that your banking corresponds to the receipts or your total takings. This is something that sometimes isn't done, and the Treasurer will record all the bank deposits from the bank statement, but that may not be correct, and we've had instances where it hasn't been correct and the amount that was banked was different from the amount that was actually sitting on the taking sheets, and without someone checking those, you don't know. So it is important to do that. Use security bags to store cash after it's been counted. That way there is a protection for the people who are taking it to the bank, or if it's stored in the office safe and a number of people go in there, you have protection because it's been sealed properly. But always try to get it to the bank as soon as you can, and otherwise you need to secure it very securely, and don't take it home. Money shouldn't be taken home. You should be able to bank it in a night safe or leave it on the school premises, but it shouldn't go home with you. Your insurance will probably not cover it if it goes missing. So for those who have a deductible gift recipient status, if you have a school building fund, you're able to issue tax receipts for any donations to that fund. It is for that school building only. It's not for donations to the P&C. So someone might give you a donation of $500 to get a tax rebate. They can only make those donations to that school building fund, and only if your P&C has a school building fund. Schools are allowed to have a library fund, but P&Cs are not. They used to be able to, but it has changed from there. So our cash books and trading statements, again, keep it all up to date. Try and do a little bit at a time rather than a whole hunk at the end of the month. It will help to pace yourself and your time. All your entries should be recorded. If you're using a accounting package, it will prompt you for those things. If you're using an Excel spreadsheet, you need to make sure that you're doing it properly. Don't use whiteout in any of your official documents. And the trading statements will show the profit of the year to date, and you'll find examples of all of these in the accounting manual, so please use that accounting manual. There's about 96 pages of it. It's not heavy going. There's lots of examples, and if you haven't got a template that you want, please contact us and we'll see if we can find one for you. Your profit has to be calculated, and there's a lot of information in the accounting manual around that. Those trading statements need to be generated monthly, and they need to be from all of your accounts. So if you have more than one account, you need to have a consolidated report so that the full picture of the business can be shown at each general meeting. Katrina, do we have any further questions?
Yeah, we have one question, Robin. Suzanne just was asking a question about the security bags that you mentioned before for the banking.
You get them from your bank. I believe that there is a cost. Okay, there's a cost of about $1.50 or so. They're called quick deposit bags, and various banks will have different names for them, but they all do provide a secure, and they're usually a heavy plastic that once you seal the seal, it's very difficult to get it undone, and you can tell whether it's been tampered. And that protects, for instance, if your janitor, your school grounds person was doing the school banking, then they're protected from any insinuations that might come across if money's not what it should be when it gets there, because the pack hasn't been counted properly before it left the school. It is a really good protection thing that we need to look at. We'll move further on. So management, you need to be organised and do a bit at a time rather than overload yourself at the end of the time. Monitor and transfer any surplus funds back to the main P&C account from any subcommittee accounts. So again, if the subcommittee is holding a lot of funds and they're not targeted, they should come back to the main P&C and they can be spent by the P&C. If the subcommittee has got targeted funds in, for instance, they're wanting to build something particular or buy some musical instruments, then that funds can still come back to the main P&C and be held in a cost centre until they reach their total and want to spend that amount. That would be called a targeted fund. So make sure you keep all receipts and order books and your checks, all your checkbooks somewhere safe and secure. Keep that asset register of equipment held by the P&C. Now, in years gone by, everything used to be equipped by the department. So if you bought something, you would sign it across to the school, they'd equip it with a number, and they would have it on their asset register. With the introduction of One School, the schools weren't able to allocate P&C owned equipment. So P&C has been required to keep their own asset register. So that would be for things that you use regularly and that therefore predominantly P&C use. So things like you might have a P&C laptop, or you will have all the equipment in the tuck shop, the microwave, those sorts of things. Anything that's a fixture belongs to the school, but those other things that you might have a freezer, they all belong to you, and you should include them in your insurance. In your insurance premium, you have cover for $15,000 worth of assets replacement, and if you need additional to that, you need to talk to the insurer or to us. that would include your uniform stock and your stock in your tuck shop. So just make sure that you do have that insurance level. Make sure that you do include those assets in any stock takes that you do, so that you know that you have all the assets that you should have, and keep all those records filed on school site for the appropriate periods. We have a document disposal schedule on our website as one of our fact sheets, so you're able to access that through the website. And again, it's important to keep all the information you can on the website. As a treasurer, you also need to be aware of what they call SOAs, which is the standing offer arrangements. And what this does is the department has gone out to suppliers like uniform suppliers, stationery suppliers, equipment and food suppliers, and they have an arrangement in place with them that you don't necessarily have to go through the purchasing policy process, that you can just quote their number and you can order directly from them, because the department has got you a special deal, the same as they would have for their schools. So those SOAs are also available on our website. Now, P&Cs will often employ people. P&Cs Queensland doesn't give any industrial advice to P&C associations. Your P&C should be a member of a union of employers. The two main ones that are around at the moment are Community Management Solutions and National Retailers Association. So I believe both of them have a flyer on our website, or there can be some contact details if you'd like to contact us, but they will provide you with the industrial information that you need. So you need to ensure that they are receiving correct wages, you're allowing for leave entitlements, long service leave, and that they do have pay slips. They must sign on, they must have a timesheet, and they must be working to their award, which is a state award, not a federal award. You need to keep up your insurance and your work cover payments, and you should have a copy of the industrial awards on site. We have a copy on our website that can be downloaded. Employees are entitled to see that document, and you should have it there on site. Again, you should also be storing all of their information in a secure, locked place on site. It's a requirement of industrial law that you do have those employment documents on site. They would be things like their next of kin, their any letters of appointment, any tax file numbers, all of that sort of personal information would be there, and obviously needs to be treated as confidential. So you need to be making sure that you are paying correct PAYG and superannuation and doing that on time, or you will find that you get fined for not doing so. Okay, so before your AGM has been completed, you need to have your stock takes done, particularly the last one before your AGM, so that you get a true and accurate figure for the P&C. Those financial statements need to be available in the correct format, and if you go to that the department site that we looked at earlier, or to our link to the accounting manual and the accountable documents, you will find that format sitting there electronically, and if you want to look in the accounting manual, you will also find templates. So the auditor has to provide you with a audit report, and you will need to address any qualifications that the auditor has on your finances for your AGM. You need to try and get your budget working for the next financial year, and again, do that around October. But without financial statements to present, so your annual audited statements, if you do not have them, you can't have your elections for officers at your AGM. Your AGM would simply be adjourned until those reports are available. If someone wished to resign, they could, and their position would be filled at the next general meeting, but as soon as the financial statements were available, you would hold your AGM. So it's important to understand that part. You also have to ensure that the Secretary has a copy of those annual financial statements and budgets, and that the statements are in that correct format, including that transmission form that is on the department's website. They're also sent to your DEEP regional office, your audited statements. P&C Queensland does not require your audited statements. We have a number that gets sent in here every year, and we pass them back to the department's regional office for your school. So please send them directly to them. You can do that through your principal, or you can post them directly. The auditor's report should be there. You should be given a copy of all the audited statements and the auditor's report to your principal for their records. And you should have everything ready for the incoming treasurer. And again, if you're using our members area on SharePoint, it's very easy to do, and it makes a better handover. A qualified report must be addressed. You can't let it go if the auditor has said that there's something that they need to address. The statements that we were talking about, the certificates that need to go on the front of your annual financial statements, are the next couple of slides. So there you will see there's an audit statement, there's a certificate for the President, Secretary and Treasurer to sign, and these should go to the auditor like this. There's a form there for the auditor to fill out and complete, and the purpose and scope of financial statements. So they're the things that are sitting there and that you are required to put on the front, and they're very easily found through the department's website or our P&C Queensland website. The P&C Queensland website is probably easier for you to negotiate. So please do look for that. If you can't find it, please give Katrina or myself a call and we can address that for you. I'm just going to do some final questions.
We have a couple of questions that have come in. One just going back on before when you were talking about the collection of money at the school. What is your advice on money being kept on the premises of the school, for example, floats?
They should be locked away. The tuck shop convener should take the float and lock it in the school safe in a locked tin every night. It should go up to the school office and be locked away, and every morning should be collected with the keys for the tuck shop. Your convener shouldn't necessarily have a set of keys to the tuck shop. They should go up to the office, collect those keys, collect their float money and go back down to the tuck shop. That would be the easiest and most direct way to deal with that. So the school should provide a locked safe for the P&C to store their money temporarily? Every school has a safety, has a safe of some sort, and there should be room in there to put that. So if you're having trouble with that, certainly give me a ring and I can see if I can help out. Okay, and one other question, just about the payment of employees. Is it mainly the Treasurer or the whole executive who would normally work out the wages of an employee, or could they employ a bookkeeper to calculate the wages? Okay, the P&C is quite able to have a bookkeeper working with them. Just remember that the Treasurer is the person who is responsible. So you need to know that you're happy with what has been worked out as far as wages, and that their timesheets match up with the hours that they're being paid. But certainly you can hire a bookkeeper to do that. Yeah, so that's, yeah. All right, we'll just move on quickly now because I am very aware of time. So with our subcommittees, you need to know what subcommittees exist and if any operate a separate bank account. You'd be surprised how many subcommittee accounts are out there not being used at the moment. So it is important, if you have subcommittees or other bank accounts, to make sure you consolidate them. Reduce the number of subcommittees that you have to a minimum. So if you don't need them or they don't need to have accounts, reduce them. Some subcommittees will have a long life, some will have a smaller life. Ensure that all your monthly reports are done and received from the subcommittees. Sorry. and put in place any operating guidelines with the subcommittees. We have templates for those operating guidelines. It just makes it easier. It sets out the rules of operation, and then both the P&C and the subcommittee understand how it should operate. And any excess funds should be returned back to the main P&C. Now, the purpose of your tuck shop should be very clear, and it can be a fundraiser or a service. However, regardless, it has to run at a profit. It cannot run at a loss. So if you're running a tuck shop at a service, that's fine, but you still have to make sure that you've covered your costs involved. If you're not covering costs, then you need to look at what's happening. The tuck shop is required to comply with the financial management outlined in the accounting manual, so you should provide your tuck shop convener with a copy of the accounting manual. Remember that the tuck shop convener cannot be a signatory on the cheque account, as she's an employee. And if you've got low profits, it's usually because prices are too low, stock is being lost or wasted, giveaways are too high, or there's a loss of money or stock due to theft. So keep that in mind, but any loss is unacceptable, so you should be addressing that, and your principal should be on top of that as well. So we don't give any advice on tax registration, but there are some things you need to be aware of. All P&Cs have an ABN number. They were registered as a bulk with the ATO, and the registration, you have tax concession charity status through the ACNC, which means that as a statutory body you have the same ability as a charity within limits. Because you are a statutory body, you don't have the full benefits of an association as such, a not-for-profit association, but that will help you to apply for grants and things like that. You can, because of that status, you can have a deductible gift fund, a school building fund. You may or may not register for GST depending on the need, and you can input your tax at your tuck shop. And again, there is a section in the accounting manual on that, and you can find further information with your senior finance officers around that. You need to complete activity statements, and you need to decide whether your tuck shop is going to be input taxed. We have what is called a non-profit sub-entities, and your tuck shop can be listed as a not-for-profit sub-entity, and can have a turnover of up to $150,000 before you have to register for GST. So again, talk with the senior finance officers at Region and your business service managers. They can help you with that, and make sure that you're paying your ATO. Auditors, you need to appoint an auditor before your AGM. You need to actually ask them whether they're willing to do that. Get a quote from them, because you might be able to get someone who's going to do it as a community service, or you might get someone who's going to charge you, but it can be varied in cost, and you need to make sure that you have a quote for that. Those qualifications that are listed there are also listed in the accounting manual. So it doesn't have to be a practicing accountant. It can be a public sector employee who has the capacity to audit. So just be aware of that. So where can I get help? P&C's Queensland website is the first place to start. It has a huge amount of information. The accounting manual is one that you should be very much aware of. Your principal and your school staff, particularly your business service manager, your auditor and your accountant are there to help. We provide as much support and resources as we can for you as an executive. If we haven't got something, please let us know. You've got the phone number there, and there's a free call phone number for people who are outside of the state, outside of Brisbane, sorry, and the email address. So you can get in touch with us. We have e-news, an electronic monthly publication. Parent Talk is published quarterly and is a fully published magazine. Our area coordinators can provide support locally about your role, and you can attend area training meetings. They're advertised on our website. The address for the website is there. Remember the SharePoint login. There's lots of information that sits in there. It is important to know. I'm sure that you're all going to have lots of questions because we have pushed through this a lot. There is a lot for treasurers to know and understand and the rest of the executive to be aware of. So please, if you have any questions later, please give us a call or maybe even go back in and revisit this webinar and make some further notes for yourselves. But certainly if you've got any questions, let us know. And I suppose we'd like to thank you and acknowledge your contribution as a volunteer, because without the volunteers in our P&Cs across the state, our schools wouldn't be as well resourced. Our P&Cs give a huge amount of money to our state school system. So if there's no further questions, I'll just say thank you and hand back to Katrina, who will close the webinar.
Thank you very much, Robin. I'm sure you will all agree that was a very informative webinar. As mentioned earlier, this and past webinars that we have conducted will be available for viewing through the members area of our website and also through our Vimeo channel. All those links will be on our website under the webinar page. And don't forget, our state conference is on this year on the 12th and 13th of September at the Mercure Hotel at the Gold Coast Resort at Carrara. Registrations are now open. We also have a very limited number of funded spots. So again, have a look at our website for those details, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. So once again, thank you to Robin for the webinar tonight, and we will be rescheduling more webinars for later on this year, but more information will come out about that. Okay, thank you very much everyone. Have a good evening.